Hello and welcome to the Hardy Brain, the show that takes athletic, introverted entrepreneurs and leaders and transforms them into ironclad brain performers. I'm your host, Dr. David Hardy. And today on our show, we've got another amazing guest. He is a mental health advocate, international keynote speaker, and best-selling author of 4 different books. Welcome to the show, Allan Keller. How are you doing today?
I'm awesome. Thanks for having me, Dr. Dave. Grateful to be here.
Absolutely. Now, this has been a scary and amazing journey you've been on. Like, what happened? Like, at age 13, there was an event that really transformed your life for a lot of the worst back then. What was that, and how did it kind of affect you?
Oh, man. Yeah, to be honest, grade 8 is where a lot of the challenges of mental illness surfaced. But the work that I've done as of late it's been quite apparent that my childhood was filled with a lot of trauma. Unfortunately, at the hands of people close to me, I experienced a lot of sexual abuse. And the
Wow.
mind is an interesting thing. And I suppressed all that for 20 years. And I became a very confused, lost, volatile young man. And I think that when we're in pain and we don't know what to do with that pain, we just grab at straws. So I turned to a life of self-destruction, addiction, name a label from a psychiatrist. I had it. I've been on countless pharmaceutical pills. And, I think the short and sweet is I hid behind that mask for so long. And then eventually you get sick and tired of wearing that mask. And I've just wanted a different life. And somehow I have been fortunate to transform some of that pain into purpose.
Oh, wow. Now, on top of this, though, you mentioned wearing masks, and for a while there, you were like above average, though. Like you were hiding behind this mask of like doing amazing things too. Like, can you kind of walk us through like up until things went bad? What would somebody looking at you kind of perceive versus what was going on inside of you?
Sometimes our society forgets that just because someone's smiling, that doesn't mean that they're happy, right? And yeah, on the outside, I was an amazing actor. So people see the guy who's present to this school. I'm athlete of the year, captain of sports teams. I received a national scholarship as an outstanding community citizen when I was attending the University of Alberta. And I was an addict, and nobody knew. And, meanwhile, I'm coaching Special Olympics. I'm taking care of individuals who have autism. I'm teaching special ed at a junior high school, barely holding on. At that point, the doctor actually gave me a month to live because of my destructive lifestyle, my body shutting down. But again, nobody knew. And the sad reality, Dr. Dave, is when people get too close to us in active addiction, we got to get rid of them because they try to make us change or make us feel. And I just yeah, it was a tough lonely life, but it took me a long time to let people in.
Wow. Now, would you say you've kind of got a superpower now in identifying people like yourself that were hanging on? What would you see? Like, I'm sure there's so many other people out there that are kind of leaving this double life of like internal struggle and turmoil and putting on a show.
Yeah, I think that the superpower would be that I have embraced the power of story, and everyone has a story, and nothing connects us like someone's story. The two most powerful words that exist are probably me too, connection. And I've been so fortunate, blessed to be able to have a bit of a platform from a stage where I can now share my story. And I never shy away from the fact that life is hard. I still find life so hard, but it's also rewarding. The thing is, we have to be willing to do the work and surround ourselves with the right people. But vulnerability breeds vulnerability. And because I'm able to go to that place, it gives other people permission to do the same. And that's the most fulfilling, rewarding part for me, Dr. Dave, is when I can meet with people later and they simply say me too. And darkness
Yes.
begs to see the light of day. Nobody wants to lead a life of self-destruction and pain. The problem is that we often fear the repercussions, that we might be judged, that it will impact how we're perceived in our place of work, in our family, in our community. And I think that collectively, thankfully, we're starting to just understand that we all have challenges in life, and the simple things like the importance of compassion.
Right. You mentioned so many very powerful things there. One of them, though, was that people are kind of scared of what would happen. Do you think at that point in time they're kind of aware of it, though? Or is it just there's going to be more pain if I open up?
I think it's both. I think there's some people, like for myself, I didn't even know what I needed. I just knew that I needed help, but I had no idea where to turn. And I could acknowledge that I had a problem with the destructive lifestyle that I was leading, but to accept it is completely different. I think acknowledgement is the mind's understanding of something, and then acceptance is where it's the unity of mind and soul when you're ready to do something about it. And it's the action part that is so hard because we struggle with change. It's hard to step outside of our comfort zone. In many ways, it's easier to go through the familiar pain that we're used to, because for a lot of us, I mean, for me, it came down to I didn't want to feel. Don't make me go within, because as soon as I feel, then I just get bombarded with these overwhelming feelings and I hate how I feel. So I'd rather put a blanket over some of that. Having said that, finally I arrived at a place where I understood that feeling leads to healing. Put that on a
Now,
billboard.
right? Well, it is almost now that kind of the same themes pop up in a lot of mental health things, and in some circles they almost become cliche. And one of them is, oh, they've got to hit rock bottom till they get better, or they never will. Uh, do you think that's actually the case, or is it the case in some people, and in other people, opening them up to these stories of how we can heal and how it's possible could get people from not hitting rock bottom?
Rock bottom's an interesting term. I think rock bottom is 6 feet under. I used to always
Uh,
say it can't get worse. Yes, it can. It can always get worse, and you're so right. We shouldn't we shouldn't have to change the moment that we hit rock bottom. If it's a very simple question, are you happy? And that's happiness is fleeting, but yes or no. If the answer is no, then it becomes quite apparent that if you want something different, you have to do something different. I think the problem for me is I had the victim mentality for so long. Woe is me. Nobody will understand what I've gone through. Yes, they will. But you don't get those rewards unless you give yourself permission to be vulnerable and take a risk. So, the short and sweet, no, you don't have to hit rock bottom to initiate change. But having said that, when it comes to addiction, wow, I just was so lost. It's so simple to say just stop. That
right?
for me felt like someone saying stop breathing. And my
Yeah, what?
consequences, yeah, it I had to face so much pain for me to finally get to the place of surrender and trying something different. And that's the twisted thing with addiction, that yes, for many of us, we have to hit a proverbial rock bottom where we realize I don't want this anymore. And then it's a slow crawl up, and often we fall back down.
I love how you say that right there, is because yeah, when we look at plots and themes, the plot in the story usually expressed is, oh yeah, you kind of hit rock bottom, yeah, you find some help, and then oh wow, life got good. And
Yeah.
people kind of skip over that part of just how hard it is to make those changes. And well, the first one is how hard it is to find help, and then the definition of help too is probably not what a lot of people expect. And the way I kind of put that is, yeah, there's going to be help or guidance or people that will listen, but so much of the work, as people say, the work is you have to do things yourself. Can you kind of walk us through what that whole process, help, and then self responsibility or doing something, what that looks like, feels like, kind of those initial stages?
Yeah. For me, it started with stop blaming. I remember meeting with an elder, and he said to me, Al, when you point your finger at someone or something, you better pay attention to the three back itself, because that's where your healing journey begins. I had a hard time with trust. Do you struggle with trust? Perhaps some of the listeners do, but the thing is, our walls are often up, and they're up for good reason. And what helped me on my healing journey initially, Dr. Dave, is I didn't want to talk to people about my internal battle, about some of my feelings, but you can tell a piece of paper anything. And I think that the key for me was understanding that the darkness has to see the light of day. If I do not look at my emotions, it's going to make me physically sick. And you know that probably more than anyone. And so I started to release some of that energy, because emotions are energy, through
Right.
a piece of paper, and then I would burn it, but I started to feel better. And then I started to talk to people who I trusted, keyword trust. And then I started to, I guess, give myself permission to go within. Uh, as I shared before we hit the good old record, I just finished publishing my memoir, my story. And that took me to
Wow.
places that I I thought that I had not resolved the pain, but I thought that I was a lot further ahead than I actually was. And where I'm going with this is, someone who I respect said, when you visit those caverns of your past, make sure that you bring a friend and a flashlight. And
Yeah.
and a key part of my healing journey is that I don't have to do this alone. And so the saving grace was getting myself into support groups, into rooms where other people spoke my language, meaning they understood my pain. So when I get myself in a bipolar support groups, when I got myself in a Gamblers Anonymous, Alcoholics Anonymous, the Saskatoon Sexual Assault Center for other men who'd been sexually abused, I mean, I don't have words to explain the fear, the shame, the anger of even trying to get into those rooms. But I also don't have any words to explain the feeling of relief, redemption, connection, of just being understood. And I think for me, that's been everything. All I ever wanted was to be seen. I wanted to be heard, and I wanted to be supported. And that's why I trademarked those three things, because that for me was everything. But you don't get that if you do not give yourself permission to be vulnerable.
So you've been vulnerable for a long period of time now. Like, when did you first kind of start speaking about this, and how long have you been at this?
Well, I've been speaking for about 15 years, but how it actually started was in Edmonton, because gambling was one of my addictions. I lost everything to that. And I said to myself, like, there's got to be other, young people struggling with this because I'd go to these 12-step meetings and there were never young people. So I rented a church actually in Edmonton. I started
Okay.
my own support group. And then I actually Googled compulsive gambling Edmonton, and I found a place in Edmonton. There's only one, Problem Gambling Resource Network. I drove there. I said, I want to speak with the executive director. He was there. I shook his hand and I said, let me be a face and a voice to this. And he said, okay. So I started getting paid $75 per presentation plus a flat fee for travel, $50 to go to schools, treatment centers, and jails. And I did over 100 of those. And that's how it all got started. And here's the sad thing, though. I was still an alcoholic doing that. I was still in a place of absolute destruction. And it's the definition of hypocrisy because I'm trying to tell people how to lead a life of wellness when I'm an absolute mess. But I think I was just at a subconscious level. I wanted to heal so bad, but I wasn't willing to do the work.
So what do you mean by doing the work then? And it's probably going to look different for so many people, but what is that?
Well, for me, it's pretty simple. It's being open and honest, taking ownership, giving yourself permission to feel, and embracing that vulnerability is strength. Quit with the bitching, quit with the whining. If you want something different, do something different. Look at the resources available, put a voice to your pain, be open-minded and try different activities, but just do something that can promote your own wellness.
I love it. Now, you mentioned wellness again, and even going back, writing your memoirs this long after the fact, what physically happened inside of you when you're revisiting this? What sort of shifts of energy are was it a release or was it like, oh, I'm trapped in my own body again? What kind of occurred there physically with this then?
That's a great question. I appreciate that you use words like energy because there was a massive shift. And I would say that every time I'm able to share some of my experiences from a stage, it's cathartic, it's healing, but it's also painful. And I felt I was really sick, off and on writing the book. When I sit in my car in a parking lot before going to some of the support groups, I get sick. Um, the like for me, and the shame damn near killed me most of my life. And it's really really hard for me to talk about the sexual abuse piece because it's so prevalent, but it makes me physically sick. And even sitting in the car parking lot before going to those groups, my nose bleeds, my blood pressure spikes, my heart rate spikes. So when I was writing the book, visiting some of those places, tense, sick, nauseous, I hated it, anger, I want to go back to the bottle. It was an inner war. And I lost my best friend to suicide, my brother. Like we lived the same life. And so it was really painful. Having said that, the interesting thing with losing my best friend Justin, this is a sad truth. If he had not died by suicide, Dr. Dave, I would have.
Wow.
And so I have a very twisted sense of gratitude because through his death, he gave me life. Um,
Right.
so there's things for some of us. I mean, we all have challenges in life. We all have things that we've risen above, and I think for most of us, there's things that we can just leave in the past. Like we don't need to go there anymore. That was the challenge for me with this book. Like I kind of had to go there, and now I'm done.
Mm.
Like I'm exhausted.
Right.
I'm did it, but
Mm.
I encourage people to simply go to some of those places sometime just so that they can embrace the fact that they have survived their most challenging days. Because I don't
Mhm.
think we give ourselves enough credit for some of the things that we've gone through.
Powerful. Absolutely powerful. Wow. Now, on top of this, though, when you do get that sick and you've revisited these things, how are you getting yourself back up instead of reaching for that bottle or for that crutch? What are ways you release this tension other than talking about it? Because, yeah, after writing, I'm sure you're done putting those words out. After doing a speech, you're probably done putting those words out, but you got these feelings and this energy that's making you sick. What are the ways you get through that or get rid of that and move it behind you then?
Yeah. I'm really, really fortunate to have a partner, Tanya. We've been married for 15 years. And the reality is, when I don't put a voice to some of my feelings, she's the one who picks up that I'm going down before I even do. And she's the one who will actually encourage me to talk or do something proactive about it. We are lucky to have 3 dogs. So my best therapists have fur.
Right. Yes.
And they help me just move through some of that pain. Like love is a powerful emotion. And we got this 5 pound thing that I just love more than anything. And I find that just being with the emotion of love pushes some of that other stuff away. Dogs make you play. They get you outside. We also have, 4 boys. 2 have already left the nest, but they encourage me to play, to get outside. And I know that when my patterns are pretty predictable. I will start to isolate, I withdraw, and then I become very irritable, and I start living in my head. And I have to get outside. I have to be around other people, and I have to give myself permission in a safe space to talk about some of my feelings. So I work closely with a counselor. I had another appointment yesterday. I work closely with a spiritual coach. And what I've learned is I don't want to just go to those resources in times of challenge. I want to be consistent in that, because often the only time that we seek help is when we're struggling or we're burning out. And that
Right.
makes no sense.
None. And yeah, yeah, that's the pattern everyone's living with, I believe, to some extent. So another valuable, important message there. Um, where do you think people get stuck then with this? Or I know a lot of people will say, well, yeah, they fall in the trap where they're just repeating everything over and over again, and that's why it continues to relive the experience or their downfall. Where do you think people get stuck versus succeed in getting better and healing themselves?
Well, I think initially people get stuck because the hand is so heavy and they can't raise it. And they have all those old scripts. Perhaps what they believe comes along with being vulnerable. Like as a man, I didn't grow up at a time where it was modeled that it was okay to be vulnerable or to reach out for help. So those old scripts for many of us become one of the biggest barriers, and we get stuck right there. Another thing is simply we're creatures of habit, so we like predictability, familiarity, and we do what feels comfortable and familiar. Because the moment that I had to put the bottle down, I had to feel. The thing is, I drank to drown my demons, but eventually the demons swim, and that provokes incredible discomfort. And I think that's where a lot of people get stuck because it's so hard. That's the only word. It's so hard. And uh I have to always play the tape forward. Like what am I fighting for? If you don't have something that you're fighting for, you're going to go back to old behaviors. And as a side note, my saving grace was I met a woman who had two boys, and I moved in with them when I was 3 months sober. But being around them was my why, because I was like, what is this? Like they seem to love me for me. They accept me for me. I want this connection. I want a family. And that was always my reason for staying sober. Uh yeah, it's I still struggle. You know, but I go to a meeting or I talk, and nobody said life was easy, but as I said before, the victim mentality left a long time ago.
Wow. Now you're doing a lot of projects to bring this out. You've got Project Semicolon, so many other things. What are some of the ways people can tap into more of this raw emotion, vulnerability, and lessons that you provide for people?
I think social media has a bad rap often, but social media is also a beautiful place where people can become transparent with their struggles. And
Agreed.
there are a lot of valuable resources when it comes to recovery, when it comes to mental health, when it comes to suicide prevention. And good old Google will take you to many of those places. And, I think that I get hundreds of messages from people who always say, I want to do what you do. I want to share my story from the stage. And well, you know this more than anyone. That sounds great, but what happens behind the
Right.
scenes is extensive.
It's
But I
more trauma,
do.
isn't it?
Oh my gosh, yeah. But I
Yeah.
do I do think that people can use social media as a powerful platform to share their story and help connect. And there are many great podcasts and resources and Facebook pages where people are doing just that. They're using their story, or they're using the story of others to remind us that we're not alone.
Fantastic. Wow. Now, you have 4 kids
Mm.
and 4 books.
Yeah.
Which one's your favorite? Bookwise, of course. Yeah.
Yeah. Which kid's your favorite? Ooh. Uh,
Which
you know
out of the
what's
eight?
sad, Dr. Dave? This is a sad truth. I have never been proud of a book that I've written. Um, Shame, like I said before, almost killed me. Shame is the most dominant feeling. I still struggle to find value in my being. I struggle to find value in anything that I have produced. What's sad, and I'm working through this, but honestly, after I do an event and there's a line of people who want to buy the book, my head still says, "What the hell's wrong with you? Like, what? Why would you buy this book?" And we are often our harshest critics. What's different is this fifth book, my memoir, coming out here in a couple weeks. I I'm scared because I've never been this vulnerable. But in terms of favorite, it would be that one because something's changed where dare I use the word proud. Uh uh
I think you
th-
should.
Thanks. Like
Yeah.
um I somehow have made it. I don't know what's happened, but there's been a shift, in terms of energy too, where I just maybe it's just celebrating my resilience, and maybe it's we all need to give credit where credit's due. Um, so it would be this last one.
Amazing. When does it come out? How do we
April
get it?
2nd.
April
April
2nd.
2nd, it will hit the shelves and probably, I mean, Amazon always works or
Yes. Yeah.
through my
What's the title
website.
going to be, though? What's the title?
It is transforming pain into purpose.
And you're doing that. Wow. Yeah.
Yeah,
No,
thanks.
pride is definitely something I think would replace. Yeah, we always talk about opposite emotions, and that's the complete opposite of shame. So, absolutely great on you, and I think everyone needs to reach out to Allan. What website do they go to? How do they find you on social media? And how do they share in this transformation?
Well, appreciate it. The website is allankehler.com, ALLANKEHLER.com. Social media, I don't know. Probably LinkedIn's the best place to go. But I just would encourage others, yeah, to embrace their own story, celebrate their own resilience, and uh, we sell ourselves short too much. And I get tired of the calls, Dr. Dave, you know, with having to go to communities where there's been suicides. And I love that you highlight the topic of mental health and that you want to empower others to raise their hand and just remember that we don't have to fight our battles alone.
And thanks again for all you have shared today, and for the work you're doing. Because I agree, there's way too much of this suffering out there in the world. So I do encourage everyone, reach out to Allan and talk about your issues, and also, yeah, stay tuned to the next episode because we'll continue these conversations. And I really applaud the work you're doing once again, Allan. So everyone, take care and stay tuned to the next episode of the Hardy Brain, the show that takes athletic, introverted entrepreneurs and leaders and transforms them into ironclad brain performers. Take care.